Welcome back, dear students. It is the continued video of the previous one. In the previous session, what we learned, student? In the previous session, already we learned about the three Carnatic wars which were fought between Britishers and French. Also, we learned about the Anglo-Maratha War and we learned about the Anglo and Mysore War. In today's session, we are going to learn about the remaining important key elements. We are going to learn about the annexation policy of the company. The company adopted the following methods to bring India under the domination. First one, that is doctrine of lapse. Second one, that is subsidiary alliance. And the third one, that is direct annexation on various pretexts. Now, what is the meaning of the word pretext? It means the reason given in justification. Now we will learn about this one by one. First one, that is doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie, he devised the doctrine of lapse policy, and according to this doctrine of lapse, only the natural heir, means the person who legally entitled the property, would succeed the throne and not the adopted son. In the event of the ruler's death, so states without natural heir were annexed by the Britishers. Here the states of Satara, it was annexed in 1848. Sambhalpur of Orissa, it was annexed in 1849. Bhagat, it was annexed in 1850. Jhansi, it was annexed in 1853. And Nagpur, it was also annexed in 1854. So all these states were annexed under this doctrine of lapse policy. Second one, that is subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance, it was devised by Lord Wellesley. Under the subsidiary alliance, the ruler of a state was provided with many military securities. Okay, now we will understand what is this. Yes, according to it, every ruler in India had to accept to pay a subsidy to the British for maintenance of British army, and in return, British will protect them from their enemy. Okay, this is called the subsidiary alliance. Once provided with the military security, the princely states could remain independent so far as internal matters were concerned, but they could not exert their independence outside of the states. Second rule we can see of this subsidiary alliance is the British company resident, it was kept in the court of the Indian king, and the princely states had to pay an annual amount towards the cost of resident. Third rule of this, the Indian ruler could not employ any European for his service without prior approval of the Britishers. Next rule, the Indian ruler also could not negotiate with any other Indian ruler without consulting the Governor General. So under the subsidiary alliance, Hyderabad, Mysore, Awadh, Peshwa, Bhosle, Udaipur, Jodhpur, Jaipur, it came under the British. Now we will see the third policy, that is direct annexation. Direct annexation, in which we will learn about the annexation of Awadh. Okay. The Nawab of Awadh had many heirs. It could not therefore be covered by the doctrine of lapse. Already we learned the doctrine of lapse policy. What is the doctrine of lapse policy, students? According to this, only the natural heir would succeed the throne and not the adopted son. So here is the exception. The Nawab of Awadh had many heirs and could not therefore be covered by the doctrine of lapse. So the British had adopted a new strategy. British had to come up with some other pretext to deprive him of his dominance. Therefore, Nawab Wazid Ali Shah, he was accused of having misgoverned his state and of refusing to introduce reforms. His state was annexed in 1856 on ground of maladministration. The annexation of Awadh created a great discontent in the British army, as most of the sepoy in the army were from Awadh. So here we learned about the annexation policy of the Britishers. Now the next, that is reforms measures undertaken by the company. Yes, in that first one we will see the the administrative reforms. Okay. The political and trade victories of the English East India Company and the enormous wealth amassed by the governors brought the company under the scrutiny of the British Parliament. In 1773, the British government passed the Regulating Act, which gave Parliament greater control over the company's territories in India. A council comprising the Governor General and 4 councils were appointed to govern the Bengal. Second, that is the Pitt's India Act. The Pitt's India Act 1784 further deepened the British government's control over the company, and the Board of Control was established to supervise its working. Third one, that is the Chartered Act of 1813 ended the company monopoly over trade in India and allowed other investors to trade with India. The Governor General, he became the effective ruler of the company territories in India. So here we understand the administrative reforms. Second one, that is civil administration reforms. The greatest work of Cornwallis was the overhauling of the civil services by employing capable and honest public servants. Now, what is the meaning of the word overhauling, students? It means repairing or improving something so that every part of it works. Okay, so the greatest work of Cornwallis was the overhauling of the civil services by employing capable and honest public servants. He discovered that the servants of the company were underpaid, but they received so they should have to receive very high commissions on revenues. In addition to that, they conducted forbidden and profitable private trade in the names of relatives and friends. Again, Cornwallis, who aimed at cleansing the administration, he pursued the directors of the company to pay handsome salaries to the company servants in order to free the servants of commercial and corrupting activities. Again, further, Cornwallis introduced the policy of making appointments mainly on the basis of merit. This laid the foundation of the Indian civil service. Another major reform that Cornwallis introduced was the separation of the 3 branches of services. Yes, these are the commercial, judicial and revenue, and all high posts were reserved for the English and the Indians were only appointed for subordinate posts. Now we will see the judicial reforms. Cornwallis secured the services of Sir William Jones, who was the judge and a great scholar, to reorganize the judicial system. Here we will see the reorganization of civil and criminal courts. At the top of the judicial system, the highest civil and criminal courts of appeal, namely Sadar Diwani Adalat and Sadar Nizamat Adalat, they were functioning at Calcutta. Both these bodies were presided over by the Governor General and his council. There were 4 provincial courts of appeal at Calcutta, Dhaka, Murshidabad and Patna, and each under 3 European judges assisted by Indian advisors. Third, that is district and city courts functions under European judges. Every district was provided with a court. Cornwallis had removed the collectors of their judicial powers and made them solely responsible for the collection of revenue. As a result, district judges were appointed, and Indian judges or munsips were appointed for lower range positions in all the courts of the judicial system. In criminal cases, Muslims law was improved and followed, and in civil cases, Hindus and Muslims laws were followed. In suits between Hindus and Muslims, the judge was the deciding authority. Cornwallis was very merciful by temperament, and he put a stop of barbarous punishment and abolished mutilation. What is mutilation? Means giving violent punishment like removing a part of the body. So he abolished means oppose. He stopped the mutilation. Okay. Here we understand the reform measures undertaken by the company. In that, first we understand about the administrative reforms, second we understand about the civil administrative reforms, and third one, that is judicial reforms. Now we will see the Cornwallis Code. Cornwallis was the first to introduce the codification of law in India. He introduced the concept of rule of law, which meant that justice would be dispensed on written law for each crime, and that should be equality before law. This would mean that everyone was equal in the eyes of law. However, this was not applicable in practically during the British rule. Now, police reforms. For effective implementation of judicial reforms, the police administration had to be reorganized. The district judge controlled the police. Each district was divided into thanas or police circles, each of which was about 20 square miles. It was placed under an Indian officer called the Daroga, who was assisted by many constables. However, police organization was not effective. Why? Because the Daroga, he enjoyed almost unlimited power of extortion. Now the last point of this lesson, these are the other reforms. Cornwallis reformed the Board of Trade, which managed the commercial investment of the company, and fair treatment was given to the weavers and Indian workers. He increased remunerations for honest service. So in today's session, what we learned, student? In this session we learned about the annexation policy of the company, in which we learned about the three main policy. These are the doctrine of lapse, subsidiary alliance, and direct annexation on various pretexts. So the company adopted these methods and annexed the states. Again, we had learnt about the reforms measures undertaken by the company, in which we learnt about the administrative reforms, civil administration reforms, judicial reforms. We learnt about the Cornwallis Code, police reforms, and other reforms. With this, we cover up this lesson, students. I hope you all understand this lesson very clearly. If you have any concern, any doubt related to this lesson, please drop your mail to the given mailbox, and don't forget to write comments in the comment box, students. Students, please note down the assignment of this lesson. What you have to do, you have to write the information in your own words about the three Carnatic wars, and you have to write the annexation policies of the company in your words. Okay, students? I hope you all clear with this. Thank you and have a nice day, students.